You're listening to the Quint podcast.
The Quint presents the big story for 28th August 2020. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast don't belong to Audible but are those of the Quint, unless otherwise noted. In the backdrop of another incident of police shooting of an African-American citizen, a deadly protest against police brutality that left 2 dead in Wisconsin, and an extremely dangerous Hurricane Laura powering through Louisiana, the Republican Party has been holding its national convention ahead of the 2020 US elections. Unlike the Democrats who went ahead with a virtual event due to the pandemic, the RNC chose a more hybrid format with a mixture of taped and live events that involved a naturalization ceremony at the White House where 5 immigrants, including an Indian software engineer, were naturalized as US citizens. When US President Donald Trump got elected in 2016, his supporters had a theory that he lost the popular vote to Hillary Clinton due to a postal ballot fraud. Without any proof, however, it's mostly been a conspiracy theory. But as Trump got officially re-nominated as the Republican candidate for the November 3rd elections during the convention, he accused the Democrats of quote-unquote using COVID to steal the elections by introducing the universal mail-in votes in some states that he said can be manipulated by the Democrats, and asked his supporters to watch out.
Now, if you want to really drive them crazy, you say 12 more years. 12
more years!
Because we caught them doing some really bad things in 2016. Let's see what happens. We caught them doing some really bad things. We have to be very careful because they're trying it again with this whole 80 million mail-in ballots that they're working on.
If the Democratic National Convention went for a full display of cultural diversity while outlining the kind of crises that America is facing right now, such as the pandemic, the resulting economic crisis, a systematic racism, the ongoing Republican National Convention was all about defending itself against allegations of racist policies, racist structures, mishandling of the pandemic, and interestingly talking about cancel culture. So what are the biggest takeaways from the Republican National Convention? Let's dive right into it. Trump seeks re-election at a time when the coronavirus pandemic has claimed more lives in the US than anywhere else. While there's a lot of criticism about Trump downplaying the threats of the pandemic and doing too little, too late, Vice President Mike Pence hailed the US government's response to the pandemic and painted a rather rosy picture of Trump as America's savior in this unprecedented crisis. Now, Mr. Pence's speech from Baltimore was a few of the live ones from the convention, and one thing to note there is that even as Pence spoke of the outbreak, both he and Donald Trump were without masks as they greeted a crowd, also mostly maskless. This almost symbolic of the Trump administration's blatant disapproval of the health protocols in the pandemic and their somewhat belated response to this crisis. Let's listen into what Pence said.
Before the first case of the coronavirus spread within the United States, the President took unprecedented action and suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world. Now, that action saved untold American lives. And I can tell you firsthand, it bought us invaluable time to launch the greatest national mobilization since World War II. President Trump marshaled the full resources of our federal government from the outset. He directed us to forge a seamless partnership with governors across America in both political parties. We partnered with private industry to reinvent testing and produce supplies that were distributed to hospitals around the land. Today, we're conducting more than 800,000 tests a day. And we have coordinated the delivery of billions of pieces of personal protective equipment for our amazing doctors, nurses, and healthcare workers. We saw to the manufacture of 100,000 ventilators in 100 days. And no one who required a ventilator was ever denied a ventilator in the United States. We built hospitals, surged military medical personnel, and enacted an economic rescue package.
But the pandemic is not the only crisis that this administration had to face in the last few months. George Floyd's brutal killing by the US police triggered perhaps one of the largest protests across the country in the modern history of the US under the Trump administration. Coupled with its anti-immigrant and anti-foreign student policies that also upset India, the Trump administration has come under fire repeatedly for demonizing minorities, foreigners, and protesters of Black Lives Matter. In this, the DNC and the RNC showed quite the contrast. While amongst its policy outlines, the DNC has acknowledged the deep-rooted racism in the country and made it one of the topmost priorities to fight against racism, the GOP convention took a shot to erase the accusations of racism against Trump and his administration. If the DNC provided its platform to the kin of George Floyd and Eric Garner, the RNC invited former football player Herschel Walker, an African-American, to plead a case for Trump. Walker, in his testimony, talked about his personal relationship with Trump and said that having lived in the Deep South, he's seen what racism is, but Trump isn't racist.
I've known Donald Trump for 37 years, and I don't mean just casual ran into him from time to time. I'm talking about a deep personal friendship. One time, I planned to take his kids to Disney World with my family. At the last minute, Donald said he'd like to join us. So there he was, in a business suit, on It's a Small World ride. That was something to see. It just shows you what a caring, loving father he is. It hurt my soul to hear the terrible names that people call Donald. The worst one is racist. I take it as a personal insult that people would think I've had a 37-year friendship with a racist. People who think that don't know what they're talking about. Growing up in the Deep South, I've seen racism up close. I know what it is, and it isn't Donald Trump. Just because someone loves and respects the flag, our national anthem, and our country, doesn't mean they don't care about social justice. I care about all those things. So does Donald Trump. He shows how
and
much
backing
he
this
cares
line
about
of defense
social
was Republican Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, also a black man who said that over the past 4 years, the Trump administration has made, quote-unquote, tremendous progress to keep the promise that all men and all women are created equal. But what really stuck out like a sore thumb in the middle of all these affirmations of the Trump administration was consecutive days of a violent standoff between protesters and armed gunmen in the backdrop. Following the police shooting of African-American Jacob Blake, at least 2 people were killed and 1 injured after shots were fired at the protest site in Kenosha in Wisconsin. Michael McHale, the president of National Association of Police Organization, who was one of the speakers, however, made no reference to the shooting of Mr. Blake. Instead, the police union leader said that the violence and bloodshed in some American cities is the direct result of refusing to allow law enforcement to protect American communities. And in a surprising departure from a previous endorsement of the Democrats, the National Police Organization gave its endorsement to Trump.
We value his support of aggressive federal prosecution of those who attack our police officers, his signing of the Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness Act, and his support for permanently authorizing funds to support 9/11 first responders and their families. Law enforcement officers across the nation take an oath to run towards danger when everyone else is running away. They do so willingly to protect our families and communities. I'm proud that the overwhelming majority of American police officers are the best of the best and put their lives on the line without hesitation. And good officers need to know their elected leaders and the department brass have their backs. Unfortunately, chaos results when failed officials in cities like Portland, Minneapolis, Chicago, and New York make the conscious decision not to support law enforcement. Shootings, murders, looting, and rioting occur unabated. The violence and bloodshed we are seeing in these and other cities isn't happening by chance. It's the direct result of refusing to allow law enforcement to protect our communities. Joe Biden.
What was really interesting is that a key line of offense against Democrats in the Republican National Convention was cancel culture, with some of the speakers alleging that the Democrats were trying to control the voters through cancel culture. While Donald Trump Jr. also added that the left is trying to cancel the US's founders, his girlfriend, Kimberly Guilfoyle, a top Trump campaign official and also a former Fox News host, lambasted the cancel culture of quote-unquote cosmopolitan elites who, according to her, wanted to steal America's liberty and freedom. Nicholas Sandmann, 18, whose MAGA hat-wearing video from 2019 had gone viral where he's smirking at a Native American activist, was also given the platform to speak. Shortly after the video got popular, he was accused of being racist, and he counter-accused the media of participating in cancel culture. And while speaking of his experiences, Sandmann said that Trump had been the ultimate victim of the media.
Well, the media portrayed me as an aggressor with a relentless smirk on my face. In reality, the video confirms I was standing with my hands behind my back and an awkward smile on my face that hid two thoughts. One, don't do anything that might further agitate the man banging a drum in my face. And two, I was trying to follow a family friend's advice, never to do anything to embarrass your family. What I thought was a strange encounter quickly developed into a major news story, complete with video footage. My life changed forever in that one moment. The full war machine of the mainstream media revved up into attack mode. They did so without researching the full video of the incident, without ever investigating Mr. Phillips' motives, or without ever asking me for my side of the story. And do you know why? Because the truth was not important. Advancing their anti-Christian, anti-conservative, anti-Donald Trump narrative was all that mattered. I learned what was happening to me had a name. It was called being canceled. Canceled is what's happening to people around this country who refuse to be silenced by the far left. Many are being fired, humiliated, or even threatened. And often, the media is a willing participant. While much more must be done, I look forward to the day that the media returns to providing balanced, responsible, and accountable news coverage. I know President Trump hopes for that too. And I know you'll agree with me when we say that no one in this country has been a victim of unfair media coverage more than President Donald Trump.
In a presidential election where the South Asian American identity is becoming increasingly highlighted, especially with Kamala Harris's nomination as Joe Biden's running mate, the Republicans also opted for participatory elements in the convention, such as the naturalization ceremony of 5 immigrants, including a software engineer of Indian origin, Sudha Sundari Narayanan. While some called it a gimmick, especially given Trump's record of anti-immigration policies, the Indian American voter is a linchpin in these elections. But will these tactics secure Trump a second term? The editor for this podcast is Shelly Walia, and it's been produced by me, your host, Shorbri. If you like listening to The Big Story, please log on to the Quint's website and check out the podcast section for more.